Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Beacon Hill Council meeting. Today is April 5, 2022, and it's at 6:30. So I just want to welcome everybody. So feel free to just check in and say how you doing. I know it was a beautiful sunny day, a little bit cold, but it was great. So that kind of pumped me up. How are you guys doing?
Good. Doing good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good.
Any other comments? Okay. We can always come back and do some commenting later on. We also have Alvin Edwards, who's joining us from the Department of Neighborhoods. He's a liaison and he helps us navigate the city to get connected to resources or to people who are handling issues for us. Hi, Alvin. Just want everybody to know who you are.
Hello, everybody.
Super. And then Amy, if you can bring up the agenda, that'll be great. So I just want you guys to know that basically I'm going to do a report, and then we have three main pieces of business. We have Captain Moss confirmed from who is the captain for the South Seattle precinct. And then we're going to have the North Bike Trail presentation, and I think Lisa is going to be doing that. And then we're going to meet Christina Chu, who is our contract worker for the Beacon Hill Environmental Justice Educator and Organizer regarding the aircraft emissions. So if you can take that down, I can go ahead and give my report. I was a little surprised. Our hello neighbor usually is a little bit longer, but that's okay. Okay, Amy, thank you. All right, so I'm just going to give you a briefing on what's been going on. So we are planning an Earth Day, April 23rd, 3 o'clock Zoom event. The focus is going to be, let's talk about it. It's going to be an update on the CTAC expansion. And then there'll be a small panel on how to talk to young people about climate, because it causes anxiety, as well as environmental justice causes anxiety for the young people. I think a lot of it is kind of like it's an overwhelming issue even for us. And then the third part is going to be a presentation about the health profile study that was done by King County Public Health with regards to the airport's impact within a 10-mile radius. I also wanted to update you. We wrote to the mayor regarding the tree ordinance because the current tree ordinance doesn't have an equity analysis. This is important to us because the census shows that we have about 73% people of color and 40% immigrants and refugees. So this is a key aspect of it. And it does not really take on the guidance of the Urban Forestry Commission. The other thing is we commented, Beacon Hill Council and our partners, King County International Airport Community Coalition, El Centro de la Raza, and 350, we attended an EPA session headed up by Brian Manning on a new rule that EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, which is a federal agency, is promoting with regards to aircraft emission standards for new airplanes. And they want this to align with an international ICAO, International Commercial Aviation Organization, that wants some consistency among the flights. So we basically said, good idea, but it really doesn't help us because what we need is intervention right now, mitigation or reduction of greenhouse gases and emissions with regards to the aircraft emissions. So for those of you who are familiar, the 2019 pre-COVID number of flights that comes in and out of CTAC is 450,000 flights. So, and there was a drop with COVID, and they're quickly getting back up to the number. And also, we were informed by the Port of Seattle that at our last meeting, excuse me, at our February meeting that they're not going to put out the environmental assessment. They're going to wait until the winter, until the fall or the winter of this year. So what we're doing is reorganizing our campaign so that it's a, rather than no added harm, we're talking about fix the current harm, so that we have an opportunity to make our issues known to our community. Because the last educational that was done was by El Centro de la Raza in 2017. So it's time to bring folks back up. We also were part of an energy plan application for technical assistance from the, I believe it's either EPA or Department of Ecology. This was spearheaded by Northwest Sparks in partnership with El Centro and then United Church of Christ, Reverend Angela Ying, who is putting together what they call a climate resiliency center. If you're aware of her, they have a compound wherein there's the church, there's programming for youth, there's a daycare center that REWA runs, there's Got Green. So it's a good facility that they want to do that, and us. So what is an energy plan? An energy plan basically looks at fossil fuel energy that's used. So in Beacon Hill, we have about, I think about 3,000 homes that are oil heated. So how can that conversion be because of the health impacts on us as well as the climate greenhouse gas emissions? So that's going on, and it's a technical assistance grant, meaning there is a provider, I think it's NREL, and I'm forgetting the moniker, what it stands for, but basically they're going to do the research for us so that we can develop a plan. So I'm going to pause with that, and I know there's a couple of announcements. Charlie McGrady, if you can unmute yourself. We got an email from Charlie alerting us to an issue on Beacon Hill. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, I can make this short and would love to connect with people to talk further. So there used to be a huge issue with golf balls from Jefferson Park Golf Course coming into the neighborhood. People in the community had been hit by golf balls, and there was extensive property damage as a result of trees that died off in the course that didn't get replanted. So about 3 years ago, 4 years ago, the golf course basically shortened hole 11 and 12 to mitigate this issue. And now there's a proposal coming up to extend those golf courses or those holes and to construct 160-foot netting across the north and the east sides of the golf course. So this is 16-story netting, right? That's going to tower over our neighborhood, but that also is going to, cut off a fair amount of access between the Cheesty green space and the golf course, which is a pretty vital habitat and environment for our neighborhood. And also, the perimeter of the golf course is kind of the primary park for us. And I live right there. So I just kind of wanted to make sure that the Parks Department who's doing this is soliciting feedback from not just golfers, but also like the immediately surrounding community. I think that this sort of project is something that's going to fundamentally change the nature of our neighborhood, our ability for everyone to access that park. And it's also, like in between like the planes and whatnot, like the birds are such a vital resource as well for us on Beacon Hill. So I've been collecting signatures within our community on a letter that we're drafting to politicians and also to the construction department to halt the permitting of this project, and just wanted to reach out to the council for support and also guidance for the best way to proceed, just to make sure that we're all kind of having our voices heard. So it's 160 feet. It's hundreds of feet of that. I can share the exact proposal with folks if they'd like, but so yeah, 16 stories, And there's going to be 4 different structures that reach about that height. So it'll span a very significant part of the north and east perimeter of the course. So yeah, I can speak more on it, but I want to be wary of the time. So if anyone has any questions or follow up, I'd love to get connected. And because to me at the core, this really is kind of an environmental justice issue, and making sure that we have equitable access to the golf course, which actually is a park that is being leased to the golf course. So I just want to make sure that us as a community can continue to enjoy the benefits of having such an open green space. This is a pretty permanent infrastructure project that once built will be there forever. So, or at least for the next decades. So
Charlie, if you can drop your information in the chat box, and I have a feeling we're going to have some extra time near the end of the meeting. So if you want to, stay put. Also, we have, I think Kathy Colombo and Mark Solomon are also working on a golf course renaming to honor Mr. Bill Wright Jr.
Okay.
For the golf course. So there may be some collaboration that's possible there.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll stay on and make sure that the project plan gets disseminated to everyone.
Okay. The other thing that would be helpful while you're there is to go ahead and put in a description of the issue, or if there's a document that we can link to.
Yeah. So there's a letter actually that we drafted for as a community. I don't know if I can attach it in the chat. Is there a way to email it to folks?
You might be able to. Well, if you email it to Beacon Hill Council, but the thing is, we would need a conversation with you, and so rather than having a conversation next month, we can figure something out, and these things have timelines, so the more you can inform us how that fits. I know what I've done before is cut and paste the letter into the chat box.
Sure. Yeah, I'll figure that out. Yeah.
Okay. I'm going to check in with Amy to see if we have the captain with us, or are we running a little early? So is Captain Moss online yet?
No, he's not.
Okay. I'm just looking through text. Well, let me take a moment to go ahead and check in with Amy Sparby to see what's going on. Betty Jean, you had a clapping. What was that? Because Captain isn't here, or what?
Oh, no, no, that's because I don't know how to raise my hand.
Oh, okay. You got our attention. Betty Jean, if you can also give us an update on the Beacon Arts Street Fair. I'm going to go offline and call Amy Sparby from the SPD to see where Captain Moss is, okay? Thank you so much.
Sure. Hi, everybody. I'm Betty Jean Williamson, and I'm the chair of Beacon Arts. And Beacon Arts is your local neighborhood arts council, and we are starting this Saturday to present a monthly street fair at the Roberto Maestas Festival Street, which is on the north side of the Beacon Hill Light Rail Station. And we're collaborating with El Centro's Market on their plaza. The Mercado will be happening along with our South End Public Market on the Festival Street, and our garden club's garden share will be happening at the same time, as well as some art projects and information booths. So it should be a great event from 10 to 4 this coming Saturday. And there are brochures about the whole series, or for the first 3 months of the 6-month series. Should be in businesses around the neighborhood, including Red Apple. And my husband, who's in charge of the entertainment, just shouted over my shoulder, and there's music. So there is music on Saturday as well. There'll be 2 stages. And just come on down, it's all free, and enjoy the day. And then later in the summer, Beacon Arts will also be hosting 5 concerts in Jefferson Park Amphitheater again. Those will be starting July 14th for 5 consecutive Thursday evenings at 7. And also, we, those of you who are familiar, we have been pleased to learn that Historic Seattle a few months ago reacquired the Garden House for our community's use. And the first access to the building that we will have will be in August when the pear orchard comes ripe. We will be hosting our annual, what we called pear, P-E-A-R, Pear-a-Dice event, where we invite the community in to harvest the pears in the 100-year-old orchard there. So I'm thinking of it as our community's welcome back to the Garden House, and the date isn't final yet. So we're kind of computing when the pears should be right, but stay tuned and we'll let you know when that is too. And that's all I got. Amy, are you there to take over, or does anyone else have something they want to share?
I'm waiting for Maria to come back.
Well, I'll just go on a bit then. These events that we're putting on are all planned and presented by volunteers in the community. So if anybody would like to help out, you can check out our website. I'll put it in the chat. There's a street fair page on the website and links there for people who might want to be a vendor or volunteer. And I think there's also an entertainers link if you want to perform. We're still looking for entertainment for I think June through September. There's still open slots. And information tables too. If you work with a nonprofit that serves the Beacon Hill community, you can get a free space to share your work with the community. We've been also disconnected for a while. We're trying to make it as easy as possible for people to reconnect with those resources in our community. So everyone's welcome.
Also, Mark, if you have an update, please go ahead.
Oh, an update regarding the Bill Wright Jr. Effort?
Yes, please.
Okay, so we have drafted a letter that will go out to the community regarding the effort to rename the golf course the Bill Wright Jr. Memorial Golf Course at Jefferson Park. We have a further ask in that looking at doing a statue of Bill Wright or remembrance of something or both that would be in the clubhouse. So we need to, as a council, the executive board, I believe, is going to be voting on accepting that letter tonight and then getting it out via our various media to get this thing kicked off. It is our goal to have the renaming of the golf course happen on Bill Wright Jr. Recognition Day, which would be October 10th. And we would use that date as a kickoff for the larger or the further campaign beyond the renaming to do the statue, the wall of remembrance, and so on. Our next committee meeting is scheduled right now for next Wednesday at, I believe it's 6. Kathy, do I have that right?
It's the 13th.
Yes.
13th
And,
at 6.
13th at what time again?
6 to 7 o'clock.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right. So that's where we are with that. We do have First State, First Tee. I think we've got Premier Golf, Redbird, the golfing store that's right next to Clock Out Lounge and Breezy Town Pies, and golf coaches from several of the high schools in the city. So that's where we are with that.
Maria? The captain is on.
It's on.
You there?
This is great. Thank you.
All right.
I'm gonna get off. Okay, thanks. I was talking with one of the staff. All right, the captain is on. Is he in the room? Captain Moss?
Yes, I'm sorry. I was struggling to I was having a problem with the link. I just got off the phone with my admin, Amy, and she resent me the link. And so now I think we're good. So how are you guys doing?
Well, we're doing good, but we can't see you. Please turn on your camera.
I don't have access to my camera, so sorry. So
Well, yeah, I am too, because we like to see the folks we're working with. But anyway, welcome. And we gave you open time on the agenda so that there were some questions I sent in that were sort of follow-up from before, right? So we have some new people on. So if you could tell a little bit about yourself. And then you probably have the list of questions in front of you, but so that our community has a sense of, you know, what are you doing about, or what's the plan to deal with the violence and in Beacon Hill, the anti-hate crime, and of course, what are your challenges and the change, the possible change with our new mayor's direction. So go ahead, please.
well, unfortunately, I do not have the questions in front of me. I have been out, unfortunately, with COVID, and so I don't have that with me, but I'm
That's
more than
okay.
happy to answer any questions that anyone has. I'm sorry, could you please say that one more time?
Sure, I can walk you through the questions.
Yeah, just walk me through the questions and I'll gladly answer whatever questions that you have.
Well, I'm looking for it. Please tell us a little bit about yourself. And while you're doing that, I'll go get the questions up.
My name is Scott Moss. I have been with the Seattle Police Department for 28 years in July. I started my career in the East Precinct. I've worked in patrol. I've worked in the community police team, which I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with. And if not, I would gladly explain what that is. I've worked as a public information officer for Chief Kurlikowski when he was here as our chief. I've worked in the Office of Professional Accountability. I have worked as a supervisor on a sergeant level and a lieutenant level in the West Precinct for 12 years. I am currently assigned, I worked in the Special Victims Unit. For those of you who are not familiar with the Special Victims Unit, it's a unit that deals with crimes of sexual assault, domestic violence, and those sort of things. Yeah, so that's pretty much what I've done and who I am here. I've been in the South Precinct since July, and I've worked as a school resource officer, so I'm very familiar with, you know, the importance of working with kids and trying to navigate through that whole process. And I've worked in the Seattle Team for Youth, which deals with kids at risk. So yeah, so that's pretty much what I've done as a police officer here in Seattle. And if anyone has any questions, I'll gladly elaborate on that.
So I'm just going to summarize these three questions to give folks an opportunity to ask you some of what they might be curious. So within the last year, I remember when you first came that things are too new. Now that you've been in place for about a year, what are your priorities, successes and challenges that you're facing?
My priorities in the South Precinct is violent crime, and basically just crime in general, just trying to reduce crime. But obviously in our precinct, violent crime is our number one priority. It's a very, we have a lot of things, and in the city itself, we've had an uptick in crime across the board, which is very unfortunate. And a lot of that's due to some of the changes, and hopefully the changes in the way that we contact people and the way that we're able to communicate with people out on the street. Some of those things have been reversed, so hopefully that will change. And we've actually seen some improvement in our precinct with certain things. Officer wellness, just because staffing is so short and officers have dealt with so much stuff this past couple of years with COVID and in light of the George Floyd protests and all the stuff that happened with that. And obviously we are in complete support of George Floyd, and we don't have any issues as far as that goes. We're just trying to work our way through all the things that have happened with the defund the Seattle Police Department and all those things. That's created a lot of challenges for us. And so we are trying to navigate through that. Our staffing levels are at the worst that they've ever been since I've been a police officer. At one point, we had about 1,400 deployable officers. And at this point, we have about 1,050 is the latest number that I've heard. And that creates a lot of challenges for us with response time, with the things that we can do, the extra time that we have to spend on specific issues and so on and so forth. It's just created a lot of challenges for us. But hopefully it's changing. We're in an upward trend. However, it's going to take a while. And when I say a while, I mean possibly a year, maybe two, to get back to the levels that we need to be at to adequately serve the public, because it's just been so problematic with just people leaving and just all of the stuff that we've had just over the past couple of years.
Okay, I'm looking around to see, are there any questions for Captain Moss? Okay.
Now, I also want to say, all that being said, I do not allow the officers or anyone in the precinct to make excuses for our staffing shortages. So if any of you are experiencing issues that you feel like you're not getting the services that you deserve in your prospective areas, we want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to serve the public as best we can. Despite the problems that we have with staffing, we still want to make sure that we're doing everything that we can to make sure that we're doing all that we can to make sure that everything is being handled properly. And that's a challenge, but we're gonna keep fighting the good fight, as they say. And we don't want it. It's none of this is your fault. So I'm not trying to say, with the staffing problems, so this is just what you have. We're still going to keep fighting for you, because that's why we're here. So if you're not getting what you feel you deserve, please let me know, and I will do all that I can to make sure that we can try to clean up whatever things that we need to clean up, because it's a problem that's beyond our control, beyond your control, and we don't want anyone to suffer as a result of that.
Larry, are you raising your hand?
Yes, just want to know, is the gang unit still working?
Yes, sir, they are.
Okay.
And actually, they've done a great job. We've recently arrested several people that we believe have been involved in a lot of the violence that's occurring throughout the city, and particularly in the South Precinct. And so hopefully we will see a downward trend here very shortly, because a lot of these people have been arrested for crimes that we believe that there's a small group of people responsible for committing a lot of the crime that was occurring in the South Precinct.
Well, maybe we'll see it in the newspaper. Captain Moss, is there something that we could do? Is there some information that we could share with community or help you out? Because we're in this together.
No, I mean, just, we're complaint driven. And so just continue to call, continue to make your request for 911. or whatever it is that we need, and we will continue. And that helps me as a precinct commander to get the resources that we need. If we have, the workload is a big deal, and if we have certain things going on, then that helps me to be able to say, hey, I need this amount of officers because of X, Y, and Z. That's immensely helpful for me. And so just continue, and even if you feel like your calls or complaints are falling on deaf ears, which I assure you they are not, just please continue to call. I talk to a lot of people a lot of times, and they say, oh, we don't want to call 911 because we know you guys are busy. We know that you're dealing with a lot. But, and I just want to make it very clear, that's all true. However, like I said before, I'm not using that as a crutch. I don't want the officers to use that as a crutch. We are going to continue to work as hard as we can to do what we can to make the city safe and to make our precinct safe. And so all the calls only help us get to the point where we need to get the number of officers that we need in our precinct, because other precincts are dealing, but this is not exclusive to our precinct. I just want to make that very clear as well. I mean, a lot of these issues that we're having here in our precinct is citywide and also regional problem. So, but just please continue to call, even though it may be frustrating. Please continue to call. Please, if you feel like you need the police, call for the police, and we will do all we can to assist you in navigating and helping you with whatever problems that may come up.
Okay. I'm looking around. We have about 33 people on this Zoom, so I'm just checking in to see if there's any other questions. Any comments? Okay, I'm not seeing any going once.
Maria, this is Alvin with Neighborhoods. So I just had one question for Captain Moss. I know you guys are like in some shortages with staffing. How is hiring going? Is there like any movement for hiring on people to the police force right now?
Yes, we are. You're absolutely correct. But again, this is a regional problem. So the competition is very stiff right now. So we're battling with Bellevue, with all of our regional partners in this area, trying to recruit. Recruitment is a tough deal. So we're trying the best we can to get the top recruits. And of course, it's a process. And so part of the problem is the academy. So there's a state academy that all the officers must go through. And the police departments only get a certain number of spots for each academy. And so even if we say if we were lucky enough to hire 100 officers this month, we're only going to get a certain number of those officers through the academy each month. So that's a big problem for us as far as trying to get the people hired through the backgrounds, through all the stuff that we have to go through, and get them on the street. So even if we were to make these hires today, we're still a year away from where they'll be actually on the street and able, so that we can deploy them on the street, because it's just a long, lengthy process, unfortunately. So we're working our way through it. I don't know exactly the number of people that we have in the pipeline right now, but we are working as hard as we can to try to get that. And if that's something, I can get that answer when I talk to recruiting. I can call them tomorrow and find out exactly, what we're doing, if that's a number that you really are interested in. But I don't have that information readily available, unfortunately. Excuse me.
Okay. Looking around, there's some nods going on. Okay. Betty Jean, did you have a question?
Yes, I'm wondering, what is the plan for dealing with homelessness in our community? There are a number of public spaces where people are unfortunately living now, and do you have a sense that the city has a comprehensive plan of how to support those people into permanent housing?
Yes, we absolutely do. And that's a great question. I'm so glad you asked that. I know that we have lots of areas in the South Precinct, particularly in the Soto area with the RVs and on. We have just reestablished the if you are familiar with the navigation team, as it used to be called, now it's called the alternative response team. The mayor was very clear that he felt that was a necessary thing that we had to have. That was one of the things that we lost with the whole defund the Seattle Police Department movement after the George Floyd protests and all of that stuff. But the mayor has re-established that, and that group has just gotten back into the field as of last week. So there's also an MDAR meeting that I can forward to any of you if you're interested in attending that. And the MDAR, they talk about a lot of the cleanups that are occurring due to the homeless encampments and all of that type of stuff. So if any of you want to be involved in that, I can extend and have Amy send you that invitation so you can attend that meeting so that you can express your concerns. But yes, the city is well aware, and we do have the navigation team is back up and running. It's called the ART team, the alternative response team. And so we are working towards getting that resolved. And obviously, as you know, it's a challenge, even though that we have a team, but in my personal opinion, I still think that we're going to need another team. We may need a couple of teams in order to be sufficient in handling that.
Well, I certainly appreciate getting that information, and we'll share it because we have some folks who live around the Jose Rizal Park, and there's concern there. There's also concern in the other parks and green spaces that we have.
Park in particular.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, Captain Moss, it's looking like you get to go because our next speaker has been gracious in giving some of her time to you, but we'll make sure she has her full time. So,
and I apologize if I took up too much time. And I really apologize that the link did not work. I was feverishly trying to work it out. I called Amy, and we somehow finally got it worked out. But hey, but please, we don't have to wait for meetings to have a conversation. If any of you want to call me at any time during the week, email me at any time. I'm always available. So please understand that you don't have to wait for an official meeting for us to have a conversation if you have something that's really bothering you and something that you feel like needs to be addressed right away.
Well, that sounds wonderful, Captain Moss, because you're on deck to come every other month, so we're good.
Well, I look forward to it. Thank you guys and have a great night.
Thank you, sir. All right, we're giving you a nice thank you. Oh,
All right, you're
hi,
welcome. Have a good
Catherine. You can't
All right,
see them.
bye-bye.
Yeah, all right. Well,
Thank you. Good night.
Okay. Thank you, Amy, for helping out. Captain.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you can always email me as well, anybody too. So I'm always available also.
Okay, super.
Thanks.
All
Bye-bye.
right. I'm going to move us to our next item, which is the Seattle Department of Transportation North Bike Trail presentation. And we have Lisa. I just saw Lisa. I'm moving my screen around because we have about 33 people. Lisa, are you
Hi,
on?
Maria. I'm here. I'm here with Serena Lehman and Hallie O'Brien.
Super.
One thing I wanted to ask is Serena's going to introduce Hallie, but I was going to run the slide deck. Do I have the authority to share my screen?
Well, what we'll do is we'll have Amy co-host you, and then you can do so. And it's
Got
not
it.
authority. We just need to do it.
Okay.
Great. So while you're all working on that, so I'm Serena Lehman. You've seen me here at these meetings before, and I've been very involved with this project over the last couple of years. And recently I have taken on a new role at the Seattle Department of Transportation. And so we've been really fortunate to bring Hallie O'Brien on board to lead the project development phase of this project, working very closely with Lisa, who's been very involved with this community on multiple projects. And so I just wanted to, quickly just say hi because I love this community and I am very passionate about the work that we're doing here. So now I will hand it over to Hallie and Lisa, and I will be here for the whole presentation and also online for Q&A since Hallie's relatively new to the project.
So we need to make sure that we give you a hand because you've been really good about collaborating with us throughout. So I know Lisa's raring to go. So go ahead, please, but we want to make sure we thank you, Serena.
Hey, no, it's okay. Serena deserves the praise, and we're sorry to see her go, but we're excited that Hallie's on the team. So Hallie's going to kick it off, and I'm going to be moving the slide deck along.
All right, so I'm Hallie O'Brien. I'm taking over the Beacon Hill Bike Project Management to our development phase. I have project managed our Georgetown to South Park Trail, if anyone's familiar with that going on. And I'm also really passionate about the Beacon Hill community. I lived there for a number of years, so I know it well. And so to start off this project, I'm going to go over our SDOT mission, vision, and goals. So, we want to deliver a high quality transportation system, and our vision is connected people, places, and products. And so our 5 core values is to have a safe, interconnected, affordable, vibrant, and innovative transportation system for all. So next slide. The purpose of this project is to create a bike facility that connects people to businesses and community in Beacon Hill. And we want it to be a AAA facility, which we call an all ages and abilities facility. So it's flat, direct, intuitive. People feel comfortable biking in it with their families. We also want to fill in the gaps of the existing network now that we have those bike lanes on 12th Avenue South and South Columbian Way and Myrtle Street, and also those trails on I-90 and the Chief Sealth Trail. So a little bit about this project background is, so the project was identified in 2019. We did a lot of outreach for our bike master plan implementation plan. As a community at Crest, we partnered with Department of Neighborhoods, and we led a bunch of public meetings, and people really wanted a bicycle route through Southeast Seattle. So that's where this project came out of. Funding, we've got funding from our transportation fund and the Levy to Move Seattle, which was a property tax fund. And then we're also seeking additional grant funding to fill in the construction gap through our Puget Sound Regional Council. Right now we have 2023 as our construction, and this is also going to be a levy deliverable. And I'll hand it over to Lisa to talk about the project timeline.
Sure. So as some of you may know, that we launched this project in the spring of 2020, right when the pandemic started. We did some activities that summer. Most of them were online, but we did do a few things. We did a community bike ride, and we did conduct some community interviews. But essentially most of 2020, given the state of the world, was online, and we kind of heard that from the community. But in 2021, we heard loud and clear that folks really did want to talk to us. So in the summer of 2021, we reached out to neighbors on 15th Avenue South, because our data from 2020 showed that that was the preferred route as it stood, but we wanted to do deeper analysis and more community engagement, so a combination of things. And so what we did was we flyered the neighbors on 15th and said, hey, we'd like to meet with you and have a site walk and an online focus group for folks that can't attend. So we dropped off flyers and said, tell us what times and days work best for you. And based on that information, we hosted a site walk and that focus group, but we went back and flyered everybody along the corridor because we didn't hear from everybody regarding what their preferred day and time was, so that they could be aware of what day and time were selected. So we hosted those events. And just to back up for half a second, the theme was really like, the intention is to meet people where they're at. We were meeting everybody where we were at online in 2020. And so in a couple weeks after the site walk and focus group, we hosted 2 neighborhood pop-up events. We hosted one at the Beacon Hill Elementary School, and then we hosted a second one in the plaza of right off Festival Street at El Centro. And then to wrap that all up, we did host an online meeting because we know that still, makes things accessible for some folks. And what we did essentially was reported out what we heard from the community, not only reminding folks from 2020, but then what we heard from the site walk and focus group, what we heard from the 2 pop-up events, and then we did some live polling and did some engagement where neighbors got to talk a little bit with each other. Then what we did was we started doing just some business district outreach, and we worked with Beacon Business Alliance. Angela's been really great, and we did that work with DON's community liaisons. So we've been in the neighborhood for talking to folks. We also have ongoing stakeholder meetings. As a matter of fact, we've got one on the books for this Thursday with PHPDA. And we our intent is to keep these conversations going on. There has been a little delay in so you see we have a long planning graphic and then our design. So we are trying to move towards design, but this is a great touch point to reach out to everybody and have this conversation because we did make that decision on what the route would be. But here's what sort of synthesized the 2020-2021 community engagement. This on the left, this is the information that we shared with the community. And then this is what we really heard. And this is collectively, as it says in the title, 2020-2021. And most of the voices that we heard from were Beacon Hill or Beacon Hill adjacent, because we know that those zip codes straddle into Rainier Valley. But essentially, we did hear from people in the neighborhood, and that kind of sums that slide up. So now, Hallie, I'll bring it back to you.
Thanks, Lisa. So this table summarizes our alternatives analysis, and what you're looking at is our scoring matrix for our different route alternatives. And so the darker blue is the highest scoring, followed by that medium royal blue color, and then the lowest score is the light blue. And so you can see that the 15th Avenue South alternative scored the highest. 15th Ave is the flattest route and has the fewest turns, but also it has the highest number of collisions of any of the corridors. 10 bike and ped collisions over the past 10 years with 1 driver fatality in 2021. And as you saw on the previous slide, it was the highest preferred by 64%, including our respondents from the BIPOC community. But one of the trade-offs is it will require removing 133 parking spots. And if we look at 14th Avenue South, the issue with 14th is that it overlaps with Route 36, which has large curb space impacts also, which over 200 parking spots that would be impacted. And it was not preferred by our BIPOC community. Then looking at 12th and 13th, which is our steepest grade, so not great for bicycling, and it's less connected to places that people want to go, but it has the least parking spots removed, but it also conflicts with King County Metro bus stops. So moving on to talk more about our 15th Avenue opportunities and impacts. We have the community identified the need for traffic calming on 15th. Cars are going fast and we have collisions there. So we've looked at traffic calming treatments on this corridor. As we said, the impacts, we have 133 parking spots, but we've heard community voicing concerns over our parking loss for all 3 routes. To respond to that, we've conducted multiple parking studies and analyses to assess how we can maintain on-street parking. And then we will continue to work with residents to keep open lines of communication throughout the project and provide engineering solutions as we are able to. So looking at those curb space studies on 15th Avenue South that we conducted in December of 2020, we looked at 15th between Gulf and Beacon Avenue South. The land use around is mostly residential. We have single family homes, townhomes, and a handful of small apartment buildings. There's a mix of driveways and alley access. And our average curb space utilization, so that parking utilization that we found, was hovering around 47%, which is less than half. SDOT evaluated multiple options to preserve the parking, but all had pretty substantial impacts to our transit lines. which I want to point out that the 36 line is one of the highest transit ridership lines in Seattle. And while during COVID, we saw a lot of ridership go down with King County Metro buses, but I want to point out that the Route 36 did not see much of a loss and continued to have high ridership. So we're really trying to be good partners with Metro and protect that line. And so we looked at converting 15th Avenue South to a one-way street for vehicular travel to keep parking, but that would have created a 2-minute delay for transit during peak hours. And in some stances up to a 12-minute delay. We also looked at a hybrid option, kind of doing a couplet with one way on 15th and the other way on 14th. But that would also require a lot of removal of parking spaces. And during the design, we also want to take into consideration ADA access and maintaining access for delivery and utilities. So the next slide shows our potential cross sections that we're looking at for the 15th segment. We have currently a southbound bike lane and 2 lanes, one southbound, one northbound, both 10 feet, and a parking lane on the east side of the road that's 7 feet wide. So we have about a 32-foot curb to curb measurement. So looking at the bike facilities that we can put in there, we've got one, which is one-way bike lanes on either side of 15th. And the other alternative is a 2-way protected bike lane on 15th that has a 2-foot buffer, and all of the bike lanes would be 5 feet wide.
All right, so this is one of my slides. So this is how we've conducted the outreach about this route announcement. And as you can see, we're kind of right on track for wave 3, which is, having these community conversations and offering briefings. So first we went out and did door hangers and flyering. Well, they were really just flyers to everyone on 15th, and also to some of the cars parked on the side streets, just to make folks aware. We also connected with the managers of some apartment buildings, made sure that they had posters, and updated the webpage with the notice and emails, shared the outreach summary report. We also did a mailer for North Beacon Hill residents and did posters throughout Beacon Hill. We went as far down as, I think, Myrtle, and put up some in some key community locations. Yeah, we're continuing to talk with folks, and that's why we're here tonight, and we're looking forward to the Q&A. But before we do that, this is what we heard from community concerns. We heard, like, especially when we went and talked with neighbors on 15th and we did that site walk, we really heard loud and clear that there's concerns about speeding and cut through. To be honest, I've heard it here at the Beacon Hill Council when we were meeting early on with this project. So people using Beacon as a cut through to avoid a certain segment of I-5 or something. So as we've already talked about, we conducted traffic and collision studies, and we're evaluating design options. So we really want to communicate that with folks and let them know that we really did hear from neighbors about concerns on this topic, and that we're really looking at how we can have design take care of those negative effects. Parking removal, as Hallie mentioned, we had parking impacts for all 3 route options, with actually 14th Avenue South having the highest parking loss if that route had been selected. I didn't mention this, but in 2020, Beacon Hill Elementary School made it really clear that the 14th Avenue South would have negative impacts for the school. And so they had some concerns about that, which we made note of. But yeah, as it's been said earlier in the presentation, we had parking impacts for all 3 routes. So we really are about continuing to work with neighbors on 15th Avenue South and open lines of communication throughout the project life cycle. Pedestrian safety and accessibility. again, it was super helpful to walk along 15th with neighbors. They were even showing us a little bump in the road that sometimes slows people down, because that light that's right at 12th at the bridge is, you got that light, and then it's a free shot until you get to, Beacon and 15th. But there's like this little dip in the road that can slow some people down, and they're just like, here's drainage problems here. Here's where we're having problems crossing. They just gave us a lot of really good intel. And so these are things that we're looking to fold into the project. And then, why not 12th or 14th? And so we've already kind of hit upon that. So you can see right there, those are our answers for that and what informed our decision, including the fact that the community did not prefer those two route options. And then it brings us to 15th, and 15th is the option that has the flattest, most direct route to community destinations. And it balances the community's requests for safety improvements. And it completes one of the missing north-south connections in the southeast area of Seattle. So what we've got now is just our closing slide, so you can see our contact information. And this is just an opportunity now. We wanted to keep this short and sweet because we knew that we could have a good Q&A session, and that's where we want to go for next.
Okay, so you want to go ahead and take down the slides so we can see people? So you can see them raise their hands and stuff?
Sure. I can stop sharing 1 second. Sorry, I'm not as savvy in Zoom because we don't use it at the office. Okay.
All right, let's put everybody on a gallery so we can see. They're ready for questions, so, or comments. I'm looking around, who's ready? Larry, go ahead, please.
Sorry, I'm new to this committee, so forgive me if I'm making questions that were already answered. I noticed that this project does not affect pedestrian walkways. I mean, I noticed the way you looked at it was just a car, your 27 feet or whatever it was, but it doesn't affect pedestrian walkways on 15th?
No, but yeah, Serena.
Sure, I'll jump in. As Lisa knows, I like to talk. But so we are working with our pedestrian teams as well as our sidewalk repair teams to do a walk of the corridor to see where there's sidewalk repair needed, so we can see where we can prioritize that funding. So we will definitely, there'll be some opportunities. It won't be a complete redo, but there'll be some opportunities for improvements.
I walked 15th all the way down to the International District, so I'm familiar with that walk.
So just to follow up, Serena, because one of the things that I noticed that Beacon Hill folks don't use the find it, fix it capacity. Do we need to run it through there, or you guys are already, is there a timeline for what you're wanting to do?
So I always recommend people run things through the Find and Fix It app, because our project isn't due to start construction until 2023. And if you run it through the Find It, Fix It app, there might be an opportunity for those improvements to be done sooner, and also flag it more broadly within the organization.
Okay, so Reverend Larry, we might task you with making a list so we can get that in, and anybody else who does the walking through. I see a couple of hands. I'm sorry I didn't catch who was first. Emilia Sanchez, and then Kyle Cordell, and then Tara Dugan.
Hi there. Can you hear me? Just want to make sure. Okay, thank you. My question relates to, I'm not sure if I caught this because I wasn't really not clarified in my mind. So if the 15th is going to be the actual bike route, is it going to affect Route 36 or not?
So right now, it will only, with the current plan, it will only overlap with one block of the Route 36 at the very north end of the corridor, just south of the Dr. Jose Rizal Bridge.
Thank you. Appreciate that clarification.
Kyle, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, Kyle Cordell. I am new to the neighborhood. I live right here on 15th, and I've been here about a month, and just sitting here looking out my window, witnessed almost 3 accidents. One of my neighbors has already seen one, been here about the same time. I know that there were some things communicated that safety considerations are being looked at. Do you have anything you can elaborate on what some of those mitigations are that are being considered? Because there are multiple factors at play. Like there's a lot of unprotected crossings, and every day when I see the kids get out of school and like running across the street, you have people flying through here already, and then people trying to pull out into traffic. You're going to be competing with already speeding vehicles, pedestrians, and then also cyclists. So that's just a lot to keep track of safety wise. So I would love to hear kind of what things are being looked at in that regard.
Yeah, so I just want to note that we're still very early in the planning process. We've done a really extended route selection phase, and so we'll be getting more into design details. And part of that will be looking and working with our pedestrian groups and Safe Routes to School folks and Vision Zero team to look at what kind of things we can do in 15th Avenue South to help calm traffic. And that can look like a lot of different things. That could look like increased crossings on 15th Avenue South. And I do want to note that with the addition of the protected bike lane, because it's a protected bike lane, that means there's some sort of vertical separation element. And that will, as cars are driving, that's going to create a visual narrowing of the roadway, which is going to naturally calm the speed of vehicles through the corridor. But it's definitely something that we heard, I'd say, not universally, but continuously throughout the project, that that's probably, I'd say, a top concern for any work that's done on this corridor. But it could look like increased crossings. It could look like some, a variety of things.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, because I just, it's bad enough seeing cars hitting cars. I don't want to see cyclists and pedestrians being hit as well.
So we're going to go to Tara, and then I have Lena, and then I have Charlie. Go ahead, Tara.
Hi, my name's Tara. I have lived on 15th here in Massachusetts for about 20 years. And my question and concern is safety. I come at this sort of from, I've been a victim of a mugging attack at gunpoint. And I've also had a friend who was sexually assaulted and murdered, and so the one thing that has shaped our lives for the last 20 years is that we don't let women walk alone after dark. It's a safety issue. It doesn't matter what neighborhood you're in. That's just the way. You just don't let that happen. And so I kind of wanted to put a face to the space to say that taking my spot is my access to my home. It's safe access. I park directly across the street from my home, and I can easily get home within a minute. And now I'll be looking for parking 4, 5, 6 blocks away, because this will ripple out. And so I'm wondering what you guys are going to be doing about the safety of all of the people that will be now, because I get home after dark and I can't get rid of my car because I'm a house cleaner. So, well, what are you going to do to keep me safe? Because right now I'm safe, and taking away my parking is going to make me unsafe.
I'm really sorry to hear that you've had those experiences. That's just really awful to hear. I want to say that we are, as a project team, really committed to working and with all the residents on 15th Avenue South who have concerns about loss of their access needs, and having conversations with them about to understand what those needs are and those concerns are. And we'll make sure to get in the chat, like the project email address and phone number. And we want to talk through it with you. We want to come and walk around and understand kind of what's happening there, so we can see what improvements we can make. So I can't speak exactly to what we can do for you, but I would love to, if you could, yeah.
Not just for me, yeah.
But I'd love to connect you with Lisa and the project team to and I encourage all neighbors, if you are if you have someone who accesses your home on a regular basis, who does have accessibility issues, like talk to us. Like we want to see what tools we have in our tool belt to help you. And we're not going to be able to do everything. But like we want to understand that a lot better as we're starting to move through that planning process. Lisa, I'm gonna put like the project phone number and email in the chat so that everyone understands that we are committed to really connecting with those who are going to be most impacted.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
actually just dropped it in.
Just hearing about it now, so that was why I'm just so kind of emotional a little bit about it. So yeah, so I took a snapshot of all the addresses and phone numbers, and I'll be giving you guys a call. That'd be great.
Yeah, no, of course. It's really important to the project team that we connect with people who are impacted. It's one of the reasons why for the first phase of outreach that we did in our current phase, was to try to connect as best as we can with neighbors on 15th Avenue South, because we understand that these are real impacts to people and we want to work with folks.
Yeah, I'm just hearing about this now, so yeah.
Okay, Serena, I have another person who is directly impacted. Lena, would you like to say, or do you want me to read what you put in the chat box?
I can speak up. I'd like to echo Tara's concern about safety. When I come home in the evening, and I try to park on 15th, there are definitely times when I end up parking several blocks away from my home. And even with the parking on 15th currently, I feel unsafe on the walk home. There's a green belt. I don't know who might be hiding in there. And I have experienced, personal attacks. I can't imagine how far I'd have to park from home if the parking were removed. So that's my main concern.
Yes, and I personal safety is really important to all of us. I did want to note that what you entered into the chat about the utilization through the area. And I want to acknowledge that through the corridor from where 14th and 15th split all the way down to Bayview and the business district, like the distribution varies. So in the southern end, the parking is it's a lot less, it's a bit more dispersed. Whereas in the north end, it get like from around a little bit south of Massachusetts, it does get a lot more pinched, right where you all are talking about. And it's something that, again, we want to connect with folks.
Charlie, you ready?
Yeah, I noticed in the original diagram for the project, there was also a bike lane that was mentioned on Martin Luther King. And I'm wondering if that's part of the same project, or if that was just in the same diagram, but will be evaluated separately.
It just happened to be in the same diagram as bike projects that are happening in Southeast Seattle. That is on a separate path, and we'll start construction on, or complete construction on that in early next year.
Okay, thank you.
I'm looking around to see if there are any other comments. Well, while folks are organizing their minds, Peter, I don't know if your hand is raised or you're just clapping.
No, my hand is raised.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Well, there's certainly a lot to unpack in this. I don't live on 15th. I live on Sturgis Avenue, which is a block to the east. I have a number of friends who live on 15th Avenue who I go to visit, and 99% of the time I have to park on 15th. That causes a problem there. Beyond what it causes is a problem for the folks who live on 15th and have only the option at this point of parking on 15th. I'd just like to make an initial comment, I guess, on this. This whole project is designed and designated for safety and protection of bikers. But I think what was left out of that equation was what effect it has on the neighbors up and down that 15th corridor. That took a very back seat, albeit it has been addressed in what you brought forth to us, but it seemed to me that it took a very low priority in the decision-making process, instead of really expanding the thought process on You know, do you go one way on 15th and one way on 14th, or go all the way to 13th or 12th to spread the problem, if you will, for those that live in this particular area? The main question, or one of the questions that I have here is what, if anything, has been taken into consideration with, and this is pretty off the wall, but garbage receptacles that have to be put out on 15th Avenue all along both east and west side. So whether you choose to go both east and westbound, or north and southbound bike lanes, or if the dual bike lane is going to be on the southbound side, I'm not sure. I couldn't quite depict that from the graphics that you showed. It wasn't mentioned, but how do you deal with that? In addition to it, was there any consideration at the 14th, 15th Street junction, where that crosswalk a few years back, there was a bump out there to make it a little bit easier for people to try and cross 15th Street. They opted not to put a flashing light or anything like that, but at least that bump out helped narrow the scope. What do you do with that bump out and still allow for that safety of passage for people to walk? The reason I bring this up is that I'm one of 3 forest stewards at Lewis Park, and we have often dealt with the 2nd and 3rd grade classes of Beacon Hill International, bringing them there 2 to 3 times a year. And it is in the morning, right at high rush, between 8 and 9 o'clock. And that becomes a very difficult process to cross the road there. So these are just a few of the things that draw immediate concerns for me, but doesn't feel as though that there has been a great deal of looking at it or bringing it into the equation.
Yeah, so I'll address both your questions. So we have been in conversation with Seattle Public Utilities about waste pickup, and we have examples throughout the city where that is operating, where people are able to put their waste curbside and it still is picked up in a safe way. So we're in conversations with them. They're aware of the project. And your second comment about the 14th and 15th split, that is a challenging intersection for somebody walking today. And we have been in conversation with our Neighborhood Street Fund, which is a program that has projects that are generated from the community to fund improvements, about some early concept designs to help make that safer for people crossing through that intersection. We definitely want to prioritize our most vulnerable users, like walkers, through that area.
In addition, I know of at least one resident that has an ADA parking space there. What do you do to that for that person?
That person actually may have been at our outreach event, and we did, when we did our site walk, we did talk with neighbors about garbage. Like, that was actually something that they were asking about as we walked along the corridor. And we actually did have a woman that lives closer to where you're talking about, that intersection of 14th, 15th, who has an ADA spot. She actually joined us for the site walk. And we were talking with her about what we would be doing to work with her. So yeah, we did have conversations with neighbors on 15th as we walked the corridor to kind of cover some of these things you're bringing up, Peter.
Okay, just to say, on deck will be Alvin, and then Dee, then Betty Jean. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Maria. I just have well, I guess kind of a 2-part question. It sounds like this has kind of been like the most popular bike route for everyone that you guys did outreach to. With some of the things that people have said tonight, so I guess first part of the question is, how final is this? And then second part of the question is, I know there are some businesses along that route of 15th. What kind of outreach has been done to those smaller businesses? And has there been any outreach to that Pac Med building as well? Because I know there's a lot of essential workers that work there, and they may utilize a lot of that parking space along 15th. So has there been any outreach to them and like businesses?
So I'm going to just address the question about the route selection, and I'll let Lisa talk about the outreach. So this is the route we are moving forward with. It's based on a 1.5 years of technical analysis as well as community outreach. So this is currently at this level, this is how the project is moving forward. And I'll pass it over to Lisa to talk about the outreach that she's been doing.
1 minute, Serena, before Lisa goes.
Okay.
I think we need to manage expectations. So if this is the final design, what is the point of talking with those individuals who are impacted?
This is the final route selection. There's still lots of design details that need to be worked out. And so we believe that we have some tools in our tool belt to work with people most impacted as we understand their needs better. Right now, it's just a line on a map. There's a lot more details before as we move forward. So thank you for clarifying, Maria.
Okay, so just to, so we don't interpret that differently. So there may be an opportunity for those in need to actually have their parking needs addressed.
Potentially, I think we need to work with those people to understand what those needs are. And I think there's just a lot of conversations that need to be had with those people.
Thank you. Lisa, please
Yeah.
go ahead on the business and PacMed outreach.
So PacMed, we've been actively talking with them and their sister organization in international districts. So we actually have a meeting on the books, and they are also communicating things out via their channels internally. But we haven't had anything to share out in terms of whether or not folks would actually attend our event, sort of thing. For that stretch that we focused on, which was, basically from the bridge to Bayview, there's a trophy business that has off-street parking and doesn't seem too particularly active. So business outreach was not conducted in terms of there was not that need, but we have been talking to people in the business district, not about 15th Avenue South route, but about, what would happen next, and just conversations, kicking off conversations. So I'm not sure if we're aware that there actually isn't a lot of businesses on that stretch of the corridor, Alvin. It's actually predominantly residential.
Lisa,
Yeah.
I'm going to suggest, I'm sorry, Alvin, I didn't mean to step on you, but one of the things that I would suggest strongly, because I have walked that area also, is the junction has a lot of activity in businesses, like there's hair businesses. El Centro, I know the parking at El Centro is limited. So I know a lot of people spill over that one. And then I go to the PacMed Beacon Hill Clinic. And again, accidental, I was sitting in the lobby and people were asking me where I park. I said, I park in the, the paid parking lots. They said, no, we can't afford that. We're on the street. So please make sure to contact the clinic, because there's a lot of folks who go to that clinic who have, who are in a financial lower bracket.
Yeah, and I know we're going to get an update on their project because they're working on the redevelopment there as well. But
No.
yeah, that's
I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about the new development that Skipta is going to be doing on the north parking lot of PacMed PHPDA. I'm talking about the clinic inside PHPDA that is existing. So
got it.
And I'm sorry, Alvin, it sounded like you had another part to your statement.
No, that was good. Those were just my two questions.
Okay, Dee.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll start with a couple of comments and then I have some questions. So I want to say the outreach was well done regarding the location of the bike route. However, there was absolutely no outreach done on removal of parking and the impact that would have on this neighborhood. And a couple of neighbors and I went and talked up and down the street, and by and large, the neighbors had no idea that what it meant to put that bike lane in there was that they would no longer have parking. They were completely unaware. So when you say you did outreach, yes, you did outreach on the bike lane, and that is needed. And everyone agrees that that is needed. What is also needed is parking. That is true also. Both of those things are true. And there's a lot of need. And to talk about the one or two or the few neighbors that are going to be impacted is just unrealistic. It's way more than that. And I don't think you understand that because that outreach was not done. And the second thing is when you say that only 47% of curbside is used, I have to say, what time of day did you measure that? Because people get home, when they get home at night after working, that's when the parking fills up. That's when it overflows, and it already overflows. And there is already not enough of it. And then also, what about the people that need caregivers and that have lived in this neighborhood for 50 years? And all of a sudden, it just seems like there's a priority being made for the through traffic over the needs of this neighborhood. And it just feels really, really disrespectful. So you can, tout all the outreach you want, but you didn't do the outreach to the neighbors and how they would be impacted by this decision. Everybody agrees that the traffic calming is needed, that a bike lane is needed, but we need our parking. And when you say creative solutions, could I get some examples of that? And it's not just one or two people. What would be
before Serena, I think Serena's going to say something. Thank you for acknowledging the outreach. I will say that the flyering we did door to door, hand delivered, stated that we wanted to talk to people about their parking and access needs. We were
the latest one, yes.
No,
the latest,
no.
The last
no,
one.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm not finished talking. No, the flyering we did last July before the site walk and the focus group, when we were asking people to pick their best times, the flyering was explicit that we wanted to talk to people about their access and parking needs. And we hand delivered those to everybody on 15th because we didn't have, email contacts. This was an opportunity to feel like, okay, we're bringing it to people's doorsteps. And, we want to talk to folks. It's also why we carried signs that said sidewalk, because we thought, hey, the folks that didn't respond, they might see a sign and come out. And a few neighbors did actually do that. But I just wanted to be clear about that. And I'm happy to share those flyers with Beacon Hill Council so you can see that if that would help, so that we could just get the narrative right, that we did say that. But I don't want to split hairs because I don't want to, I feel like we're, having ongoing conversations and it's going to continue, but I just wanted to make sure that got cleared up, that it literally was on the flyers that were distributed.
So looking forward, and like how we can continue working with neighbors, we aren't sure what those solutions yet because we really want to understand what people's needs are. If it's, are people being picked up and dropped off? Is it a caregiver being dropped off? Is it that there's certain deliveries that somebody needs? Those all kind of impact what those solutions could be. And so, I really encourage folks to reach out to the project team to like go and walk the corridor, tell us what those needs are so that we can better understand.
There's one question that Dee asked, which is examples of tools in the tool belt.
Yeah, I think it's just very dependent on kind of what those needs are. I think that's why I'm not bringing any, I'm not saying concrete things because we want to understand what those needs are what those problems are that we're trying to fix.
So how are you going to get an idea of what those needs are?
We want to talk to you. We want to come stand at your house with you if you're comfortable, and you can tell if that is what makes sense, so you can help us understand what those needs are. We're happy to have site walks again. We want to connect with people who are being impacted, like neighbors who are being impacted on 15th Avenue South. That is our priority.
So how about this? We have a lot more questions. So Serena and I'm sorry, your new project manager, what we can do is we'll work through and see which neighbors so that it can be a focus time with you guys so they can articulate their needs. So I'm just gonna, I'm making a list as I see hands go, and forgive me if it's not accurate, but I will get you in. I'm also going through the chat box. So far I have Annalise, Betty Jean, and then Kyle. And Alpana, since you don't live in Beacon Hill, I'm going to defer until we get the folks first, okay? All right, thank you so much for your graciousness. All right, Annalise or Annalise. Annalise, would you like me to read your statement? Let me go ahead and read that. It's in the chat box. Are there any considerations for alternative parking options? As there are many cars that parked on 15, especially around College, which will then have to park on other side streets, which are already full a majority of the time.
Yeah, that is, we're looking, as the project team moves forward, they will, again, be hearing from neighbors to understand like access needs and looking for how we can accommodate some of those needs, potentially looking at College. And I do want to note that when we did our parking studies, they were in the early morning and evenings, to acknowledge that that is generally when people are home, generally.
Betty Jean?
I'm gonna call you out.
You're muted.
We can't hear you.
I'm glad to hear that you're in conversation with Skipta around the housing that's going in on that route, because I think that will have an impact. And there's also been a huge impact in the turnover of housing along that route that has been converted from one single family home into multiple townhouses without parking. That's forcing more and more people onto the street for parking, rather than having fewer people with cars. So I know you've done a lot of study for a while on that, but just that stretch of road has been so impacted with increased population. That's my concern, is that the study may be skewed because of the recent changes in population.
It was kind of hard to hear you, Betty. I'm sorry. I heard you saying stuff about the turnover of single family homes to townhomes. And we did do some analysis about developments that were active or coming in through our sources. So we had some information on that I know that was used in analysis. Serena could probably speak to it a little bit more, but I'm not sure if we have to.
Well, I'm glad you had some analysis on that. I know that moving forward is going to be a continuing issue because the development is not stopped. And also, I appreciate that you're trying to work with current tenants about their needs, but people's needs change, particularly as they age. And I'm really concerned about what will happen as time goes by with that stretch of road. You don't really have to respond to that. I'm done. Thanks.
Okay, on the list is Kyle, then Kalia, and then Amy.
Yeah, I'll keep it short. I don't want to take up somebody else's time, but just kind of along those lines, I wanted to see if population trends had been tracked with all of it for the very reasons that were just stated. And then along with that, when the other routes were assessed, considering how crowded those streets already are, because like if I drive down the other side streets, they're pretty full already. So I think the thought is that all of these cars are going to be going off to the side streets, but if those side streets are already full, where are those vehicles going to go?
So, we did take into consideration that the population has been changing fairly dramatically in North Beacon Hill, as acknowledged by the Betty Jean about the numerous developments that are going in. And I think the reality is that the current street cannot accommodate all the vehicles, like as Seattle continues to change and to grow, that there needs to be other safe options for people to move around in the community, like walking, connecting to transit. And so it is something that the land use we took into consideration as we were looking at this project.
Okay, Kalia?
Hi, yes. I hope you guys can hear me. Yeah, so my name is Kalia. I've sent you guys a couple emails and left some voice messages. But I also, like Kyle, I think, just moved into a townhouse right here on 15th Ave. I've been living here 6-7 months, so I pretty much missed all of the outreach events you guys had until you left the flyer on my doorstep a couple weeks ago. And, I just really want to echo some of the things that a lot of other people are saying. I live here by myself, like some other people on this street. And there have been a couple of times that I've had to park on the side street, and it's pretty scary walking around that corner, walking a couple blocks down at night. And so that's definitely a concern of mine. One of the main reasons that I personally chose to live here as opposed to somewhere else was because of the street parking. That literally was like the main reason that that I chose to live here as opposed to living, north of I-90 in that area, because the street parking over there is just a nightmare. And so, echoing some of the other sentiments, it does kind of feel like the convenience of other people's commute route is being put over the people who live here. And that's it's just not a good feeling to feel like this is because there are cyclists that use the street, and I totally agree that the cars here, they go fast. It's not safe, and then there's also a risk of cyclists hitting pedestrians and stuff like that. And so, I feel like the question that I'm kind of thinking to myself about this is, is the bike lane about safety, or is it about convenience? Because you talked about 15th Ave being flatter than other roads, and other roads that have, less parking lots and stuff like that. But if it's about safety, then, I'm totally down to talk about, adding stop signs, adding speed bumps, getting the people who drive through here to go slower, to make it safer for the cyclists that go through, because we already lost one side of the street to parking, to the bike lane. So I think that's something that can be considered, and I would like to be considered in your ongoing evaluations as well.
Definitely. And I will just say that it's both in terms of safety and also a connected bike route. We know from our traffic studies that vehicles are moving faster through here than any of the other corridors we were looking at, and we've seen the most collisions. And we are looking for a way to create a connected bike route from the Dr. Jose Rizal Bridge into where people want to go, which is the North Beacon Hill Business District. And so it's both. And we think that based on what we heard, this solution really balances those priorities that we heard, but definitely let's keep in contact. It sounds like you have reached out to Lisa already, and yeah, let's continue being in contact as we move through.
Amy?
Yes, I echo with other neighbors as well. I've been here, I'm a lifelong resident, and I did go walk around doorbelling people, and this neighborhood has changed. I mean, it's the most gentrified in the city of Seattle. I think that was according to a Seattle Times report. And a lot of houses that I used to know no longer here with townhomes, and the urban village has been expanded. So there is a development on Plum Street that 7 units we built with 3 parking. So where is the other units going to park? I mean, it's just, it's never ending here. And I think also too, I'm concerned about the lack of outreach to the neighbors on 16th and 17th, 14th and 13th that are going to be heavily affected by this as well. I mean, And I'm just concerned also is the responses. I know you had 800 responses, but how many people actually responded live on 15th? Do they, because the zip codes are great, but 98144 expands a long way. So I just want to know how many who really live are affected here, because I have a feeling this is really going to really hurt the neighborhood, and this may cause more car accidents or pedestrian issues as well, because people cannot cross the street because cars are parked too close to the curb. Thank you.
So I just want to note that last summer, we really made an effort to connect with neighbors specifically on 15th Avenue South, because when we collected, when we did our first round of outreach, we didn't ask people what street you lived on. We asked what zip codes were. And so that's one of the reasons we're really doing targeted, flyering and mailing. And we, in this most recent round of outreach, just for informational purposes, we did the flyering and mailing, but then we did a mailing that did reach out to those folks that were on 14th, and Lisa can speak better to the range at which the mailing went. But yes, we understand that changes that you make to one street can have, additional impacts beyond that. And we look forward to continuing to work with the community, to continue furthering the goals that, like the concerns that we've heard.
Yeah, I'll just add that I hear you, and definitely the conversations are going to be ongoing, Amy, and that's why we hosted pop-up events in North Beacon Hill to meet people where they were at, to make it as easy as possible for folks to come out, and then to still offer that option of online, but knowing that we can't touch everybody, and that's why we do the mailer. The mailer went as far as the northern edge of Jefferson Park, so it was all of North Beacon Hill, and we also posted at key high traffic, high pedestrian traffic areas, saturated more in the North Beacon Hill, but I didn't want to miss the opportunity to communicate that change down the road, because we know that Beacon Ave and 15th is used by people all along Beacon, all of Beacon Hill, I should just say it that way. So, so it was, using different outreach techniques to just reach and make sure we try to connect with as many folks as possible.
Alpana?
Yeah, my name is Alpana. I have been an advocate for social justice from last 10 years here in US, and background is from research. So my question here is on some of the comments that I would like to add up here. But in this outreach, as SDOT outreach, as Lisa said, that we'll be doing the locations, the bike lanes and routes that you have done up actually. I would add up that there should be some parking places, where the bikes will be parked, or, safety purposes. And is there any bike lane in that route already, or you have to make that space, and narrow the lane there? These are the small things that's coming up in my mind. And again, you said that you will knock the door and take the data from the neighborhoods. So I suggest go for a flyer, questionnaires, and give it to them so that they can fill it up. And that would be a data collection from them. And then it can be analyzed, and a report can come out, and we can evaluate accordingly. And also what do the neighbor want? What is the impact of those bike routes in that region, 15th Avenue?
Alpana, thank you for those questions. Those are the questions that they're going to be considering. It's about 8:12. We've gone beyond our 8 o'clock stop time, and we have a council meeting that we need to convene. So I'm looking at Lisa, and I'm looking at Serena and your team. And I think we need to kind of be able to support you guys. So I know there are people who have been talking to folks in that area, and probably what we'll try to do is get the definitive set of folks to connect with you. And of course, as Alvin had stated, to follow up with the other organizations. We want to keep track of this topic. So Lisa, definitely we can set aside time again for next month so we can keep doing it. What I appreciate is the reiterative process so that we can get to something that is a balance serving the neighborhood for both bikers and for the neighbors who live in that area. Okay. All
Thank
right.
you all for taking the time to talk through this project. And I know Lisa and Hallie are looking forward to connecting with neighbors. And yeah, just really appreciate taking the extra time this evening.
Yes, thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
most
you.
welcome, and thank you also. So just a couple of things before we wind down. Our other speaker, Christina Chu, who is the Beacon Hill Council Contract Educator and organizer for the aircraft air and noise impact on us. She had to go because she had another appointment, but she did put in the chat box. She said, "My name is Christina Chu. I'm scheduled to talk after this portion, but cannot stay. I'm the new BHC EJ educator and organizer. She's going to be with us until August or September. She's helping with the outreach and awareness for the strategic airport master plan. And she's going to be tabling this coming Saturday at the Beacon Arts Street Fair, and every second Saturday from April until September, she'll be at the Roberto Maesta Street at the Beacon Arts Street Fair, which is also every other is a Southeast Market. So she's asking for volunteers for a couple of hours to raise awareness about aircraft impacts. And she put in a form in the chat box to sign. So feel free to copy that. And she also put in her her email so that you can connect with her. If you're not able to connect with her, please email to the Beacon Hill Council, and Amy will get that over to Christina. So thank you so much for your patience. We really appreciate it. And we'll keep track of this. So we'll put it higher on the agenda next time because it's an ongoing current business. So you don't have to wait so long into the meeting. So any comments before we close up? And again, just looking around the room. Yes, Cliff.
Well, I'm listening very closely, and all those concerns are issues that we've been bringing up all along the Beacon route for the last 2 years. I mean, this is nothing new. I brought up the issue about removing parking and removing the street parking, and people have to park sometimes 2-3 blocks away. And when it's daylight saving times go over in the winter time, it's dark at 4 o'clock. And safety issues has always been a concern. And we've talked about these new units going up with the lack of parking. They put them to the streets. All these things that 3 or 4 people brought up, these are all issues that we've been talking about for the last 2 years with SDOT. And it sounded to me like they was just kind of brushing through the answers. And these people, 3 or 4 of them had some really good comments, really good questions, and generally concerned questions. And it sounded to me like it was just brushed over. And it's getting old.
Well, Cliff, it's tiring to be able to keep saying the same thing. But I always think about community engagement. It's like a funneling process. We try to see how many comments there are. And then based on the predominance of the comments, they screen down, do an alternative. So I'm glad we're at a point where individual needs are actually going to be taken into consideration. So we need to hang in there. We need to bring them back at the next meeting, and they're open and committed. And I thought Serena was very good about just answering straight through. the important thing now is that they are going to be wrapping up the design and they're going to go into construction next year. So this is a really important time to keep that constancy of feedback. And if you know people who need that parking, they need to get connected with that team. So regardless of how tired we are, unfortunately, this is what it takes to advocate for our neighbors. Okay, so I just want to say appreciations to everybody and the patience and the discipline in having people ask their question and have the time to answer it. We're also keeping an eye on this process because of the Middle and the South Beacon Hill bike trail that I know which will be of strong interest for you, Cliff.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. So hang in there, everybody. So I just want to say, I'm going to give you guys a big kudos for really being good about and disciplined about having a good exchange. So just clapping for you. And I'm looking around. With that, I so appreciate your attending tonight. We're going to, some of us are going to go until 9 o'clock. So we're going to do the Beacon Hill Council meeting. And so if we had food, we would have put it out in the hallway so you can have some before you go home. Thank you so much.